So this article, okay, again, focus in. So this article, it's showing that there are states where they're training poll workers to be ready for like threats on their life. So a poll worker, again, this is someone that's working, counting votes. Okay, and so they're doing trainings. Devin, be quiet. They're doing trainings where they're basically saying like, all right, if someone comes to the polling place with a gun, like this is how you need to react. If someone shows up and they're like yelling about voter fraud, this is how you need to react. Okay, so they're training police and they're training like the poll workers, the people that are going to be counting votes. So this is there's a guy that they're highlighting in here. He was a former police officer. He was a homicide detective. And so saying that he learned that there was he was a poll worker. There was like a picture of him where someone had like a bullseye like in it, like indicating that they were going to like harm him. So again, this is something that we're probably going to see a lot of in like 2 weeks with voting. There's going to be a ton of people that are just like showing up to polling places that will be claiming there's voter fraud, that will be causing like a lot of chaos and a lot of problems. And so if you're a poll worker, you're just there trying to count votes, it's like you are in this just like crazy situation. And so it's saying that like the procedures for this, most of the time the poll manager will approach the people and explain the rules. A lot of the time people will comply, but there's going to be times where people do not comply. And then there's worries of like voter intimidation. So voter intimidation, there's a long history of this in the southern United States. We'll get into it when we talk about like Reconstruction. But voter intimidation, it's like when people show up to voting places and they might have like weapons and they're kind of just like standing there intimidating the people that are going in, kind of like an indication of like, hey, you better vote the right way or else. Okay, so yeah, this was especially common like in the South after the Civil War. But election officials and law enforcement, they are learning like how to protect polling places and poll workers. So yeah, a lot of places where they're counting like votes, there's going to be police there. There was a ballot box like where people put in like who they're voting for. There was one that just got blown up the other day in Arizona. So yeah, there's a lot of just like chaos with this topic of like voting, where you have people that are kind of like intimidated and trying to scare like the people counting votes. Okay, real quick. So this is just saying like in the article, while it's illegal to deploy federal troops or armed federal law enforcement officers to any polling place, state and local laws about police at polling locations vary widely. So each state kind of has different laws of what's allowed at polling places in terms of having like armed police. Okay, they're also learning how to deal with threats like fires, bomb threats, suspicious substances. And this is just a quote from one of the poll workers. Before the workshop, I wasn't aware of how hard the poll managers work and how stressful the job is. Okay? So yeah, pretty just like stressful job to have. If you're, even though you think like, oh, they're just counting votes, like there's going to be places where there's going to probably be like threats of like bombs or like workers getting threatened. Okay. Any questions on that? Devin, did you have your hand up at one point?